To continue, Eric, in the last part we were talking about roofings and tiles and things like that. Carry on. I mean, it's very interesting because this is the kind of information. If you have a home in Goa, you're trying to maintain it or build one, you need to know.
Yeah.
So, apart from tiling, we were talking about cost, 20,000. What else? What else does your card cover?
The information that's for general public is how do we orient you're building a house. How do you orient it? Because I found this very strange, but I found that a lot of our houses open up to the west. I don't know, at least in my place, Porvorim, they open up to the west.
Does it have something to do with the roads?
It has to, no, yeah, very often it has to do because it opens up to the roads. And if your roads are north or whatever, it will open up north.
Yeah, like our house, our front door is to the north.
No, your front door, yes, your front door is to the north. Yes, your front door opens to the north because your road is going
east-west.
East-west. So yes, it would orient itself to the, I've come across houses. You ever been to Kalangut? You'll find houses which
face the sea.
Do not face the sea, except some.
Okay.
Some, the ones which were built for tourists, face the sea. The older houses, all the older houses maybe face the road, or if there was no road, they presented the lowest face to the west and the southwest. They did that because our winds were so fierce on the coast.
Yeah.
That they had to be protected from the winds.
Okay.
So then the front is always east or northeast.
Away from the southwest.
Away from the southwest. Away from so the southwest areas were low slung, so that they did not get the direct wind effect. And then the house opened out on this is another strange thing, and I found a couple of houses like that, the old traditional houses, because I was asked by an architect to go and measure them because they needed to be renovated.
There's a lot of traditional science going into this, no?
There's a lot of traditional science.
Which we may not be aware of.
Yes, and as we go along, I mean, even at my age, I slowly find little things
new things,
which I never knew before, and they slowly sort of unfold.
If there was a traditional science congress that used to be held in the 90s in India, I attended a couple of them as a journalist, and if they were still going strong, I'm sure you could write a very interesting paper on the traditional science of house building in Goa.
Yeah, I would have to put my mind to that.
But I'm sure.
Yeah, maybe. Definitely.
And then, what else? What are the advice?
Our winds are mainly westerly. I say why. Our winds are mainly westerly. Ensure your house catches the breeze. Today we look at AC as the coolant, but you don't need that. If you use natural ventilation, you can reduce a lot of this kind of new things, newfangled ideas.
The old homes had huge thick walls, and they were
the thick walls ensured that the thick walls ensured two things. They ensured that you could go up about 20 feet.
I see.
The thicker your base, the higher you can go.
Okay. So
they had to go 25, 30 feet because if your roof was higher, then you could have that air gap between your floor and the roof to see that you are always cool. That was one.
What were the walls made of in those times?
The walls were made of, the earliest houses in Goa were made of mud, just plain mud. Later on, we used a mixture of stone, mud and stone. So there were stones on the outside and inside, and in the middle is a mud composite area. Now this has proved very useful because the stone is very weathering, and it does not this thing. And when you coat it with lime stucco, then it lasts almost forever.
I see.
So you never had that problem, and that's why they were thick walls, and the thickness also ensured that if the walls got heated on the outside, the heat transfer on the inside would never happen.
I see.
So whatever the heat conditions outside, your inside was always cool.
Very interesting. Are some of these still existing? Some of these?
Yeah, all our old houses are still existing.
With mud walls?
The mud walls are few, but interestingly, the mud-walled houses were low slung, and the reason for that is you did not use Mangalore tiles.
Yeah.
They used the half round tiles.
Old tiles.
They used the half round old tiles were very good because even if the ceilings were low,
yeah,
the half round
tiles
shape ensured that the rooms were always cool.
Really?
Yes.
How?
Because it's very difficult to explain. It was half round down,
yeah,
and then 2 half rounds on the top. So that sometimes they went even further, and they went to another half round again over that, and another 2. So that would ensure that it was, and those half rounds tiles were in those days, they were relatively cheap. And even if you did not have any, if you had a single layer of 1 half round and the other 2 half rounds, the 2 half rounds on top took the brunt of the heat and did not transfer it to the lower half round one. And so the house always remained cool.
So the problem with those old tiles was that they were difficult to maintain.
Yeah, they were difficult to make. They were difficult to make.
Made in Goa?
They were all made in Goa. In those days, they were all made. And you know how they were made in Goa? They were made on the thigh.
Really?
Yes, they were pressed on the thigh.
Yeah.
Because the thigh shape gave it a bit of the thigh shape ensured that they would never slip. They would never slip down because there was a narrow section on top and a little wider section on the bottom. So when you laid them, they remained in place. The whole formation remained in place.
Provided it was the same person's thigh, not different.
No, in fact, what happened? It was never that case. Later on, they might have made a form for it. You know, they might have. I'm sure. But what they said, it was always a man's thigh.
I see.
That always took the shape of the tile, and maybe they were made on a thigh. I don't really know.
You know,
that's what they say.
If I could interrupt, it was Valmiki Falero who reminded me or informed me that Mangalore tiles were called Sulce Noy, means tiles from the south. Sulce, Sul.
Yeah, okay.
Sul, as in the Portuguese word Sul.
Yes, Sul. Yeah, he's very right.
Yeah, and
because they all came from Mangalore, and they came from Mangalore for a certain reason because they were initially manufactured there. They were never manufactured anywhere. And then they went throughout the country. Now Mangalore tiles are almost all over the place.
Yeah. Are they used in other parts as much?
Yeah, they're used in other parts of India, but how much, to what extent, I don't know. I've been to the north and I've not really seen a lot of Mangalore tile work.
I was under the impression
they use sheets. But
I was under the impression that Goa needed because of the heavy rains.
Yeah, Goa needed because of the heavy rains. But it's not like only the heavy rains. The other parts also get equally heavy rains. They always used AC sheets or they used whatever sheets they could get. Maybe I don't really.
Other parts not really. No, Karnataka, interior Karnataka, you have flat roofs.
Interior Karnataka, because there's not very much rain. They use flat roofs, and they use flat roofs out of the natural stone that you get there. They just they join them together.
I see.
They join them together with a kind of mortar which is made out of mud and lime.
I see.
So the rain is so little over there that that doesn't get washed. And even if it does get washed away,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. You can always replace it. In fact, it was my privilege to work with Gerard when he was building. No, he was building the Nityagram school, and after the Nityagram, he was building a hotel that Pratima Bedi wanted in her premises, but.
In which part of Karnataka?
This is a place called Hesarghatta, which is 35 kilometers out of the city.
Which city? Bangalore.
Bangalore being city.
Okay.
So I was project manager there, and I used to go there for 2 days, 3 days every 2 weeks, look at the work, report back, see that it was done well. And I learned quite a lot about this kind of flat roofs. And of course, they give a lot of problems over time, but they need to be maintained constantly. If you don't maintain them, you have problems.
Eric,
this place has been taken up by the Taj now.
Eric, what are the challenges of building or maintaining a house in Goa today? Especially if you're not here, especially if you're an expat or whatever.
The biggest problems are the roof today. Just to ensure that there are no leakages, because once the leakages start,
your house is going to collapse.
The house would collapse. The other big problem we find is termites. Termites go through the mud of the house, the mud of the walls, which are always there, and they go and attack the roof. So that's another major challenge. So that's why we are trying to look at steel as an
Any other
alternative
solution for
to.
termites?
There are a lot now. The chemical barrier. The chemical barrier is one where you treat your walls. If you treat your walls, then they cannot rise to your roof.
I see.
The other thing is to treat the wood of the roof.
I see.
And especially at the joints where it comes in contact with the walls.
With what kind of?
In the olden days, we used the Keju shell liquid. Yeah, the deek. That's quite toxic, but it was very effective.
I see.
Very effective. In modern days, we use anti-termite compounds, which are also toxic, but they are more. They are more. What can I say? They are more
easier to deal with.
They are easier to deal with. They are easier to paint on, and they have a little longer say life. The termites don't sing them, and I would say those are the two major problems. Otherwise, I don't say. I think a lot of people from the country come. They want what they call a Portuguese house, which is really not for Portuguese. It's a Goan house. It's a Goan house which has evolved over the years, and they come and they like them so much that they all stay.
So, but see, having a house is fun, but maintaining it may not be fun. Would you agree?
To some extent, yes. Maintaining it is difficult. But if you do a couple of things on a regular basis, you check your roofs before each rain.
I see.
Have someone go on top, see that no tiles are leaking.
They're quite smart, the way they can check it. The traditional guys really know.
Traditional guys really know. And we need to preserve that little knowledge that they have, this basic knowledge. So we need to identify the people who have been doing this and maybe document it and
I see.
And let it, put it in the public domain so that people
knowledge continues.
Knowledge continues, and get by like our masons or other carpenters who are doing this to also learn the processes that these people use.
There is this general feeling that labor is in short supply. Would you agree? Skilled labor.
Definitely, skilled labor is in short supply. Our masons are no longer masons. They are just
slapstick artists.
Slapstick, but that's the right word. They're just they learn
slapstick word.
They learn their work maybe from a mason, and then within a month or so they are masons on their own and they start their own contracts.
Do you think then we need some kind of training schools or ITIs or something like that, considering?
Yes, we do need training schools, and there were ideas going around about this. In fact, I was working with a company that had tried to it was an NGO kind of company that tried to have training schools for masons.
Which one?
I can't remember now. It just goes out of mind.
Okay. It might come, no issue.
Yeah. I might remember, but at the moment I can't remember. But I do remember that we were involved at one time in trying to get the masons trained to do their job well.
I see.
I think it is Gujarat Ambuja Cement.
I see.
I think they had both training as well as manuals which both engineers could use.
Wow. Interesting.
And they were actually trying, along with somebody else. I think there was also a Goan partner involved in trying to get I can't remember now. This is 15 years ago.
People like Erasmo Sequeira, the politician, had some vision of technical training, and
I don't remember much about Erasmo.
They have done a report. I have it somewhere here.
You have it because
made a report on vocationalization of education.
Yeah,
because there's a mismatch between the skills and what's needed, and didn't go at.
Even if we can train supervisors in basic construction quality, then that would be quite a quantum leap because our quality is quite bad.
Leaves much to be desired, to put it mildly.
Absolutely. Leaves much to be desired.
One last question. If your card doesn't contain anything more, any other tips?
It only tells you what I do. When I say green, sustainable building design, I have been with Center of Science and
Environment, CSC.
CSC.
Anir Agarwal founded.
Yeah, Anir Agarwal founded. And Sunita Narayan runs it now. And I've been for 2 courses of theirs where they have green building technology, where we try to use as much. I could not go for a recent one where we were trying to use our local winds.
I see.
And breezes to
really
ensure cooling.
Oh wow.
Now I just could not go for it. It was somewhere in March and I just could not go. And they're having it now again, this is in Rajasthan, and they're having it again in July. And again it's terribly hot in those months. So maybe I'll go for the next one. No, I'll definitely go because that's something that I need. But I do have books. I do have books about cooling, cooling for tropical climates. In fact, they are written by the British because they came.
Wow.
And when they studied things, and maybe British or Dutch or what, I can't remember. But this thing is still there. I mean, the Indians have never really looked into it, but the others have.
I remember books at Claude Alvarez's bookshop by Laurie Baker on mud architecture and all that. Yeah. Like other people have done a lot more work than we have.
A lot of people have done, yeah. Laurie Baker has done a lot of work on this kind of how you use the local material to the best, how you recycle. In fact, Gerard learned from him.
Yeah.
Then I learned from Gerard, and there have been a lot of books.
The chain continues.
And yes, I hope this can be passed down to others.
Why not? And I think small initiatives like these, even you sharing your knowledge does help, and I'm really grateful for that. But one last question. Yes. Tell us a little bit about your days in Eden, and I know you were with Keith Vaz and things like that there, and how did you enter this field? Just two twin questions.
Yes. We came from Eden in 1961. 6 months before liberation.
Every second Goan has a foreign diaspora experience.
Yeah. And nearly every Goan had to go because there was nothing in Goa that could sustain people here. So people had to go abroad.
Even now, it's still a fashion to go abroad.
Even now, I mean, there are a lot more opportunities if you tap them.
Here,
you need to identify. Again, we have been trying to work. We said IT or whatever. And we really go into IT well, and it's structured well, then things can happen.
Yeah.
But to go back to your question, Eden. Yeah, we were in Eden till 1961, and I actually stayed at Keith Vaz's house for a couple of days.
British former minister.
Yes, when my third sister was born. I'm the eldest, and the sister after me.
Yeah.
We had to go and stay at their house.
I see.
While
because of some political trouble? Or?
No political trouble.
Okay.
Somebody had to. My mother had to go to hospital.
Okay.
So we had to stay at their place.
I see.
For 2 or 3 days.
Oh wow!
So that's what I remember. But besides that, we were very close friends.
And neighbors?
Yeah, we were neighbors. We were neighbors in Eden.
Eden is South Yemen today.
Eden is today South Yemen.
That time?
At that time, it was a British protectorate. So Keith is my age. His sister, I think, is 1 year younger or 1 year older. I don't know. Yeah, and Valerie, I think, is his sister. But the mother, his mother and my mother were very good friends.
I see.
Although when Keith did come down, Keith came down with his mother.
20 years back.
Must be 20 years back. Yeah, we tried to meet him, but there were circles of security, and we just could not meet him.
I see.
I tried to write to him once and tried to remind him, but
he's busy.
He never replied.
And how did you get into this field? Last question.
Into civil engineering? I got into civil engineering. My first love was mechanical engineering. I wanted to be I wanted to be a designer of aeroplanes.
Wow.
In those days, and I used to love that field, but it never worked out. And finally, when I did my inter-science, and my father died.
Yeah.
Then I started working with Urban Lobo, which was Descon.
Yeah.
But I started working as an activist.
He was a prominent name. Urban Lobo was a brand.
Yeah, he was a prominent name. This was in 76. I was in inter-science.
Activist on what issue? Sand mining?
No, not sand mining. This was a Zuari aerochemical pollution.
Okay.
So I do not know how I got in touch with Matani.
Matani was also close to Urban.
Matani was close to Urban. So I got in touch with Matani through, I can't remember, but I got very close to Matani. In fact, Matani and I used to stay in a house there.
I see.
Where? And I did in Welsong. No, in Sankwal. The main area where this pollution affected people and they got all sores and all. Ammonia started coming into the fields and into the water bodies was mainly in Sankwal and Welsong.
73 or what?
No, 70, 75, I think 76 or 77. Those were the years. Because I remember I was soon out of inter and I went.
I see.
And, Matani was a very powerful, charismatic person.
I know.
Of course, later on, we lost that thing because, he went Ori. But
politically, you all went your own way.
Yes. Then afterwards, because I had my background in science, I could take off almost immediately into this field of construction. And as I was doing that, we had a consultant who's come from Pune. His name was Professor Khatri. And so I was very interested in because I could understand vectors, forces, and all. And I used to do a little bit of designing along with them.
Oh gosh!
He used to say, Eric, what have you done? So I used to say, so I've done inter. He said, no, you must do your AMI. That is an examination that gives you a degree equivalent to a civil engineering degree.
But it's an external form of education.
It's an external form of it. If you do inter-science, then it's not a problem.
Tough exams? Exams are tough to pass? Easy to join, tough to pass kind of thing?
Yeah. It took me what should have taken me 2 years, took me 4 years.
Okay.
It took me 4 years for the simple reason that I had to go to Pune to answer them.
And you have to study on your own.
And you have to study on your own. And some of the matter may not be so interesting. So then you tend to drag on this. And then you
It's still available, AMI?
They've started in Penjim. AMI courses
I see.
are being held in Penjim now. So anyone wants to go, you can go. But in those days, I had to rely totally on books. And and Professor Khatri. If I had any problem, if I had any difficulty, he used to come to Goa almost once in 2 weeks, twice a month.
I see.
Because we were building a school at Kalamboli, and now when I look back and they were trying to Sarvajanik school. So Sisters of Jesus and Mary, whatever. So, and at that time we were building conical roofs.
Yeah.
And we were finding it so difficult to design the concrete roofs. And now when I look back at those days and I think back about how we used to almost struggle to design how the forces would go onto the walls. How we would design them from scratch. I find them, we made a hash of it. we really did not go into the basics which we should have.
What would have been the
like a structure. If you go into analyzing, them improperly, then sometimes you end up becoming a mess. I'll just give a small, it's a very simple example, which sometimes you'll see the truth of it as days go. You have a cone.
Yeah.
You have a cone, and now you're going to put it on 4 walls. We had to do, those were the roofs in those days. Now, all our roofs in those olden days were wooden roofs, and you never needed any science to. When we needed to do a concrete roof, we had to place a concrete structure on the walls. Then we were thinking, if the concrete pushes the walls apart, then how do you? This is the analysis of the situation. Then how do you ensure that the walls are tied together?
I see.
How do you ensure that 4 cones do not sag in the middle? Now these 4 cones are 4 triangles. So then 4 triangles are easier to design. You don't have the difficulty designing triangles. You have difficulty to think about how the force, which is not always a vertical force. It's not always a vertical force because when it sits on walls, then there's a transverse force that is put onto them. How do we when I look at that and I look at what we did at that time, and I look at how we should have looked at it, we should have looked at it as a structure that sits directly and does not pose any transverse forces onto the. We would have solved everything. I came to know this later on when we were designing arches.
I know you're sweating because you're trying your best to explain it to me in a way I can understand, but it's like going clean over my head.
It will go clean over the head of also the listeners, because it just will not.
But I must appreciate all the knowledge download you've given us, starting with your very humble card and very useful card, to going into so many other issues. And I'm sure much what you said would be immediately relevant to others. And I really thank you for the time you spent, which is quite a lot of time. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you also, Rico. Yeah.